Good morning, good afternoon, LinkedIn. Happy Thursday, December 5th, 2024. Welcome to another edition of Let's Build HubSpot Onboarding with Willem. How you doing, man?
Very good. Going through a little bit of onboarding myself right now. So yeah. And how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Enjoying this educational journey. Every month seems like it's going to be a big, exciting month. So always fun. Um, to have that going on. But exciting times for you, my friend, and kind of what led to our conversation that we're about to have today. You're like you said, you're doing a little onboarding yourself. What kind of onboarding are you doing?
So I used to be a customer success manager up till December 1st, and I stepped into the role of solutions engineer, which means that I will transition within HubSpot to a different org because one is really an org because HubSpot is of course a larger company. So CS is a separate, completely separate org from sales. And that means that I will be fully onboarded, including getting the sessions like, do you know what a workflow is? And that sort of thing. So in a way, it's fun. In a way, it also is slightly repetitive, but there are always also, if you repeat something, there are always things that you missed and that are, well, maybe a little bit silly that you didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, hell, at this rate, like what is a workflow last week might mean something different than what is a workflow this week. Uh, so I get that. And it's interesting. I my journey was like, and I've seen this where like the best salespeople, the best customer facing people, um, well, let's keep it on the sales side. Like they come, they often come from the service side, right? Because you're in it, right? And when I was before I got into marketing and sales, I was, a lab chemist and a production and quality control manager where I was the one having to deal with the technical, you know, uh, the technical calls and like, can we do the thing? Or we did the thing and now it's not working. And that's why it made sense for me. Like, it's like, hey, it would be a lot easier uh, to put me over in marketing and sales because I know all the customers and I know the product inside and out, versus try to bring somebody new in and teach them all those things or wait for them to learn all those things. So it's exciting to see, that journey, and that should be a very powerful addition, to the pre-sales team. So congrats on that move, man.
It's going to be exciting. But for me, it's also a lot about during my own onboarding, we see that some of the onboarding documents that we have are slightly outdated, which makes a lot of sense because realistically, we don't onboard like 1,000 people a month or something like that. It is a relatively small number, and trying to keep everything up to date is, I'm gonna say, a pain. And if you don't really make that simple, everything is going to be outdated pretty soon. And I think that everybody who's listening knows that HubSpot is changing quite rapidly.
Yeah, I think on the hug earlier this week, they said on pace for 1,400 updates next year. Um, or maybe that was this year. I feel like it could have been this year. I mean, 800 last year. It feels like they've done way more this year. And not like little things either. It's just like so many of this is super impactful. So, like, and I think that leads into our conversation well because, like, obviously, I believe it's invaluable, like, your experience on that side of things, you know, understanding onboarding and adoption on the customer success side of things. And we talk about how important it is to kind of understand and set expectations as early in the process of the sales process as possible. How are you, um, I guess maybe what are you excited about and like in the ways that you'll be able to like bring that kind of mindset or value, into the team.
What I'm excited about is also what I struggle with and what where the differences quite are quite profound about how do you deal with something. Because I know what I brought to the table as a customer success manager, and I'm definitely not saying that I was the best customer success manager because I was not. But I knew what I was bringing to the table, and that was a high amount of technical knowledge and not enough of the social bit, perhaps. So it was like with everybody else, it was a mixed bag. And if you have another customer success manager, then it is slightly different. What can you promise? When will somebody get a customer success manager? And that is why I also really enjoyed working with a number of customers where the customers actually during the sales process were like, ooh, and do you see this person? This person will be your customer success manager. You will have a chat with that person. This is how that person can help you out or not. And that really is, again, because I'm going to fully repeat myself about setting expectations. And I think that if you position your product well enough, and I'm going to be really uh, superficial here and kind of generic, if you position your product well enough, if you position what uh, the impact and the outcome will be of implementing the product and a way to get there, then I think that you can be a lot more sure during the entire process that the customer will also renew, for instance, if you have a SaaS product.
Yeah, that way to get there, uh, super important. And I imagine, I would hope that's like, do you see that as one of the main charges or responsibilities of the pre-sales role? And I'm always interested to understand the dynamics between the pre-sales person and the salesperson, and how often, because in the technical space where I'm from, it's like there's always some kind of like either application scientist or application engineer that is the pre-sales person, which I don't know, I don't like pre-sales, like it's they're often there the whole sales process. So I'm not sure how that applies, but there's just somebody that turns like make sure everything is technically possible and kind of makes sense from a technical functionality, level. Um, how are you kind of, or like, I guess, what are you thinking about when it comes to that dynamic um, during the sales process?
For me, during the sales process, you have a growth specialist, or basically it starts with an SDR or somebody who qualifies you. Let's say I'm trying to sell you something right now, and we're going to keep it simple. So don't hate me for trying to oversimplify the sales process, but it starts with somebody trying to qualify you. Then, if you're qualified, usually there's a growth specialist, or basically what I simply would call a sales rep, who will actually take you through the process. And if you, for instance, know what HubSpot is and what HubSpot does, and you're like, yeah, let's just give me a quote and I'll sign. Why do you need what I'm going to call right now a specialist in there? You just need somebody who has a basic understanding of the product. And some in sales have a very deep understanding, some slightly less. But if it gets more complicated, it needs to, if it needs a demo that requires more time to set up, not your standard out of the box demo, then they will likely get somebody involved who is a little bit more technical. And that is what I hope to be one day.
I think you need to give yourself some credit. You're probably uh, well on your way there, if not already there. Um, so it sounds like it's a situation where, so maybe you can help me understand, like why is the why is it called pre-sales? Is it just because in that instance, the word sales is referring to the closed one deal, like we
Yeah.
haven't sold yet?
So in this case, we're going to say there is a moment in time when somebody signs. And that really is a line in the sand. You're either on one side or you're on the other side. And there are solutions architects and there are solution engineers who are pre-sales, and there are those who are post-sales.
Okay.
So if somebody already signed, if somebody is already a customer, but somebody requires something that's pretty complicated and it is not really related to, well, another deal, getting more money or something like that. Or it may be that they require a solution which goes through technical consulting or something like that. Then you get either a solutions engineer or a solutions architect more likely involved who is post sale. But the wording, if you are not familiar with us drawing a line in the sand there, it is a little bit confusing.
Yeah, but it makes sense. I mean, like, I I suggest that I specialize in post sales, like order management stuff. So I definitely get it.
Exactly.
Right. But that's where it's again like without the designate, like the because of the first layer, which is the solutions engineer part. That's why we can do that. And I guess that's where, yeah, it's like job titles and org structures are just hard, and but we won't get too mired in that uh, today. I am interested, maybe if I can put you on the spot. Um, you know how much we love to talk about quick wins and their viability. Um,
Everybody does, right?
yeah, and so I'm interested, like, how do you bring that? How do you bring nuanced, let's call it nuanced perspective into that process when you know how detrimental it can be, like to undermine long-term success and just make onboarding harder and this whole expectation mindset. How do you how do you help these initial conversations really maybe avoid or because I don't want to say prevent, it's got multiple people involved, and like, but how do we maybe create some more healthier conversations around that phrase?
I think that it is pretty hard because let's just keep it at a very simple example. I'm trying to sell you a car and we're going to say for now 30K. If I tell you, well, aside from the 30K, you will also need to pay up, let's say 10K in maintenance and fuel and whatnot, basically the first year. Is that helpful information? Let's just say that that is true. It's another 10K for the first year. Is it helpful information? I'm going to say definitely. Will that increase the chance that you will buy? I'm going to say definitely not. If you go, instead of buying the car from me, if you buy it from my neighbor who also sells cars, and he's not saying it, or he's saying, well, this car only costs you 2K a year, which is total BS. Because let's for now say all the cars cost the same amount of money. All of them cost the 10K. Then you might just go for him because he gives a lower estimate of the what is truly 10K and because I'm too honest. If we now take that to the real onboarding with a product like HubSpot, and I'm not going to even bring in a competitor like Salesforce or anything else. But I'm just going to say, I'm trying to sell you HubSpot, and I can sell you two packages for onboarding, maybe through a partner, doesn't even matter. I can sell you the minimum of onboarding, which means that I'm going to give you one sheet of paper telling you how to log in. And I say, once you can do that, you can do anything, which technically is kind of true, right? Or I'm going to set up the quotes for you, set up the deal stages, do the whole lot, write extensive documentation for you, train your team. And I'm going to say that is another 20K. Will I sell you on that? Well, you know already what it is. But if you're just a marketing manager with a tight budget, won't the first one with one sheet of paper telling you how to log in, won't that just suffice and your people will just sort it out themselves? Yeah, exactly that.
I don't know,
And
man.
now
I
you're a
wish.
sales rep. Now you have to think about your commission. If you don't get your commission, your kids will starve to death and you will not have a Merry Christmas.
Yeah, and this is why I cannot survive as a sales rep, for sure. But man, I commend your efforts for having to balance this, because it is, we see this challenge happening in real life right now. Um, and I mean, if I were in your position, there would be definitely some fun aspects of trying to kind of take this challenge on and see
Yeah,
what kind of value you could bring. Uh, um, you know, oh, there's so many things that are
exactly.
they're
And
all hot
that is what
topics,
makes it complicated.
right? I guess so. Like, what would you like to see? Like, I guess as a part of your um, I think I need to let you guide this conversation because I'm not sure what you can or can't talk about, and I'm sure you might not even be. But like, let's take it from a perspective of if you were onboarding, let's say, to a different SaaS company. What would your expectations be during your process to to get into a role like this?
What I want you to be really aware is that I'm not a standard person. You're also not a standard person. Both of us don't compare to a marketing manager on a tight budget because the marketing manager on a tight budget will think about onboarding and all of that drastically different. For me, everything is about alignment. So if I would buy HubSpot from you, I would ask you, okay, so what exactly will the first 3 months look like? And when will I be doing what? And you can basically, well, tell me, or worse, let's just keep it at that, if I am not keeping up to my own deadlines. And I think that if you set it up like that, that every company will be successful and that realistically, it won't even matter which CRM system you're going to take. I think that as long as your expectations are set right, but that also means that if you would compare one CRM system to another CRM system, and I'm not going to say which to which because right now that's irrelevant. But if one is, let's for now say 50K a year, and the other is 30K a year, and for now we're going to say that they do exactly the same thing, but one takes a fair bit. Let's say the one of 30K a year costs you an extra 20K a year to basically keep going and to try to update everything. And you know that everything that you update, you're behind. You should have done that half a year ago. then there's a lot of friction with that cheaper solution. So the question is that truly cheaper? What does it mean for the impact on your end customers if you're a company implementing a CRM system? What does it mean if you don't? And one of the nicest examples that I have there is one of my customers wanted to send out an email to customers who filled in a form. And there were, if I'm correct, nine uh, options on the form. I have option one and or option two. So if you have two options, that means the first one is two options, the second one is four. If you have nine of them, you get to 512 possible options. For every possible option, they need to get an email confirming that option. What you could do is you could write a workflow that branches out in 512 different things, write 512 different emails, right? I mean,
Oh, tell
you
me
gotta
there's an
agree with
or.
me.
Tell me there's an or here. Yeah, you could do that
You
for
could,
sure.
and I'm gonna say that's fun for the first couple of ones. But if you write a programmable email, then you're good to go. Then you can send one email that checks what was in the form and bases it on that. We, as in HubSpot right now, have in private beta something that sends it to a AI that will figure stuff out and write you the email. And
Yeah.
if you keep all that in mind, then what exactly is onboarding? Because that still is the question. Let's say you have that form on your website with nine options, 512 variations. Do you realistically think that if you pay me, let's say 2K for the standard onboarding, that I'm going to write you that programmable email? Do you think
No.
that I know that a programmable email like that exists?
Right.
And that really brings it to what is onboarding? I don't know.
But
And
we
here
do
we
know.
are talking about onboarding with somebody who says, I don't know what onboarding is.
Oh, but you do know. We talk about it every week. And it's not because we talk about it every week that you know. It's like it's it's the problem is that nobody likes the definition,
No,
which is like
exactly.
awareness and expectations, right? And because I'm dealing with it now, um, in terms of talking to a marketing manager who is in a position where they've got HubSpot and we've got to figure out what to do with HubSpot. And um, the challenge of not knowing what HubSpot is and what it's supposed to be doing for the organization, it's like you very badly don't. It's just such a it's a conversation that leaders often aren't ready to have effectively, right? So you tend to avoid it if you're not one of the leaders because you just want to get the thing done. You've been asked to get better at something. So it's like, okay, come in and look at HubSpot and what can we do better? And it's like we could go and find a bunch of things that we could do better. But if we haven't answered these first few questions about what is the role of HubSpot in the organization, what is the goal, and what are we actually trying to accomplish, it's a challenge. And that's where when we want to start with and I think this is maybe it's because it usually leads it has often led to like we get to the baggage of how SaaS companies have delivered these tool sets and how they've sold them, right? It's like if I've got to think hard about this almost, that means it's going to cost more, it's going to take longer, it's going to be harder to maintain, I'm going to need more people, like all these things I want to try and avoid. So let's just not have that conversation. When in reality, we have a lot of, we'll say, better actors now. Like if you allow us to have those conversations, now all of those things won't happen. like, and it'll actually cost less, and you might achieve your goals faster, and you will need less people. And uh like and it came to mind as you were describing that programmatic email situation. Like I was working with Claude recently to uh like create a SKU product numbering system, right? And as I was thinking about it, there's always been this debate internally of like smart numbering, smart product numbers versus dumb product numbers, right? So
Yeah.
if you're not familiar with that, it's smart is where you expect the product number to like mean something. Like it's almost a codex for like if you see this, then it means this. Whereas dumb part numbering is just thousand, thousand one, thousand two, thousand three, doesn't matter like what it is, right? And when I asked it like for pros and cons of each, all of the cons related to smart part numbering relate to the complexity and the difficulty to maintain, right? And adapt it to new things that are happening. And what I saw was now when you have a tool like AI, this is where we get to the awareness and expectations. Like if you don't know that there's tools out there to very easily help you build or understand that a programmatic email serving 521 uh, possible results, 512, uh, like it, it's 100% an awareness problem, right? Because then if you think about it from a perspective, oh my God, 500 plus results, it seems like so much. You don't even try to do it. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, then we just send one email. We create one email and everybody gets the same email. And now it's not personalized. And now we're just email blasting people, right?
But where it starts is I feel like everybody starts with a mindset about the product. Well, realistically, we should start with a mindset thinking about the impact and the result that we want to achieve. So if you start out with that, then all of a sudden it is like, oh yeah, does the product actually fit or not? How will I get to that impact? Nobody wants to buy a Microsoft Excel because why would you want that? You only want that to achieve a goal. Nobody wants a hammer. You just want to have something to hang something on, and that's a nail in the wall. You actually don't want the nail as well. You just want things to stick midair, whatever it takes. And I think that if you think about onboarding as a customer in that way, thinking about what will my outcomes be, what will the process be, will that get me there? I think that if you ask that during the sales process, that everything will just be a lot smoother,
Yeah. Including and maybe most of all, onboarding. So,
especially onboarding, because that is really how do I get there?
yeah. Yeah. Um, well, as always, this has been a great conversation. And uh, I congratulate the team that you're joining because they're about to get a uh, hugely valuable, mindset and bringing this onboarding conversation into the sales process. We know is so important. Um, and I'm pretty sure that you just being around in that space will at least rub off on some others. So I'm excited for you, man, and look forward to seeing seeing what happens next.
Absolutely.
So I'll say to you this time, as you're going through the onboarding, as you're building yourself into these processes, find those opportunities, man, and let's grow. Have a great day, everybody. Awesome.